Yes.
Yes, in the first part, I lost my contact with the time and it suddenly stopped. Yeah, thank you. And how about the Dutch language? Uh, I mean, uh, w- what is, I mean, is there an affinity with English uh, between Dutch and English?
Yes, of course, because these are all Germanic languages. And I remember from the secondary school that we were reading Elkerlijk, that is a Dutch medieval text around 1200, if I'm correct. Uh, and we are claiming this as Dutch literature, as early Dutch literature. But the Germans do the same thing in Germany, which makes sense because this was more or less one language. And then for political reasons, the languages grew apart. And you see this continuously happening that for political reasons, countries separate. And with that, they develop their own specific characteristics in their languages. So, um, uh, well, it happened here in the Netherlands as well. There are lots of similarities, of course, with English and with German and with other Germanic languages, the Nordic languages. So these are all related, and that's well, that's the way it is.
Mhm. And this is now, since we are together, this is also a good chance to talk about the Netherlands. Um, uh, uh, the tulip has been one of the common connections between Turkey and the Netherlands.
Yes, 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 yes. I know
Uh, and some years ago, we celebrated the 400th anniversary of,
relations between,
yes, yes, the two
but the
countries.
Dutch were always a trading nation, so that they were trading with the Ottoman Empire wasn't entirely strange.
Yes, that's amazing. And the Dutch painting, Dutch art is
Yes,
magnificent, of course.
yes, it is.
Oh, wow. And I've never had a chance to visit your country yet, but I hope to do so someday with my wife.
Oh, you're most welcome. And in The Hague, we have the Mauritshuis, which is a fantastic collection of uh, Dutch painting from the 17th, 18th, 19th century. So it's great.
Mm.
So welcome to come and visit us, and we'll take you around.
Great, yes, thank you. I'd like to visit the Anne Frank Foundation as well and her the place. Yeah, and I read about the tree, the chestnut tree, right?
Yes,
That
yes,
is
yes.
one of the important personalities that tree. Um, uh, is there a Republican movement in the Netherlands?
Yes,
It's
there is, of course. Of course, there are people who would like the monarchy to be abolished, and others don't. But this has been an old discussion. With the time that Queen Beatrix became queen, there were riots in Amsterdam with people who were opposing her coronation to be queen. Prince, the current king, the same thing. So, well, yes, we have this, but the majority is still in favor of the royal family. And I have met with Queen Beatrix myself. I have had the honor uh, to be with her when she was visiting Egypt. We were sitting in a car behind that of the Queen, and then we journalists then were just joking. Well, the poor Queen, she never gets to know Cairo traffic because, of course, the Egyptians had cleared the roads from any traffic. So this part of Egypt she has never seen, and we have experienced that quite well. And then at a certain moment, we were all invited to meet with her personally. So that was quite nice, and we were allowed to ask her one question per journalist, and so of course we made agreements together. If you ask this question, then I will ask that question, and someone else will ask that question. But that's the way how it went. But that's
Mm.
she's quite she was quite a character,
What did
and
you ask
quite
her, Kees?
yes.
What did you ask Beatrix?
I don't remember anymore.
Oh,
This was in '96. So that's
my birth year.
yeah.
And uh, and how about the political situation? I mean, the major parties in the Netherlands.
Oh well,
The Netherlands is experiencing kind of a shift to the far right now, and
yes.
I wouldn't say the Netherlands is the only country in Europe right now. There's multiple Western European countries that are following the same path, and I think it has a lot to do with immigration, the fact that there's so many refugees coming in the Netherlands as well.
No, it's not just refugees. There's a housing shortage, and
Yeah.
it is not really the refugees who are creating that housing shortage. It is the economical migration
But
into
at
the
the same
country
time,
that is.
there's that you're right, Case. I'm sorry to interrupt. You're right, but at the same time, there's a lot of houses being built for Ukrainian refugees, and there at the same time, Dutch citizens are here looking
Yeah,
for housing. So that's also like a big problem. People are not
yeah,
happy
yeah,
about refugees.
yeah, yeah. No, that's true. The housing shortage is a big issue here
Yeah.
in the Netherlands.
Yeah, in Turkey.
There's
uh,
even a shift in culture in the sense of that Dutch children, well children, Dutch young adolescents that would turn 18 back in the day, it was the norm for you to move out. Like if you continue to stay living at your parents' house after 18 years old, this would usually be like frowned upon or some sense. But right now, because of the economical situation here in the Netherlands, I know people that are my age, and I'm 28 years old, that are still living at home, and this is not weird. This is not considered strange. This is especially because of how expensive everything has gotten, so because of inflation, but also because of the shortage of in housing. So yeah, there has a lot of effect on like basically all aspects of society.
yeah, in Turkey, there are about 8 million immigrants now, and um, um, a majority of them from Syria. Um,
Yeah,
they have connections with extremists. They are extremists, and there is a population concern. Um there is a That's a
but
serious
not all
problem.
Syrians are extremists.
I
No,
was just about to say that.
Oh,
And I
yeah,
think there's tension growing a lot between the Turkish and the Syrians, but not when I went to Turkey in I think it was 2022. Yeah, I went to Turkey in 2022. A lot of them thought like when I would say that I was Arab, they would immediately assume that I'm Syrian. And I experienced actually quite some racism when I was there and prejudices towards my background. I
yes,
think it has a lot to do with the immigration problem, but it doesn't mean that all Syrians that come there have connections
of
in
course not.
terrorist organizations.
You're right. But people who can think in detail, we don't have problems with them. But the majority of the people are just instinctively,
Tunnel vision.
yeah, you know this. Um, uh, how about now coming uh, back to monarchy or republic issue? I think personality of a leader, of course, is decisive in many moments. I mean, it's a decent person, a good role model, maybe a monarch, and can be inspiring, as you mentioned in your case. or a leader, maybe in a republic, maybe a terrible, inspiring person, as we see many examples. Yeah. Um, uh, what else?
Sorry.
Yes.
Can I just ask Case, uh, why would you say that most of the Dutch population is still for the fact of us having a monarch? Because I feel like when I speak to the youth, like where are you getting this information from? Because
Oh,
when I
no,
speak to the youth, it's not like that at all. Like we would much rather get rid of the monarchy because it is by the way way more symbolic than it actually does anything
yeah,
for
it is
yeah.
symbolic.
And at the same time, they take a lot of tax money to do what?
Oh, no, 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 no. They play a big role as the Queen's visit to Egypt in promoting Dutch business, and then it's good that you have a queen or a king who is joining the Dutch trade delegation, and this has happened a lot of times. So, for international promotion of the
I'm sure the
Netherlands,
prime
the
minister
royal family plays
can
a
fulfill the
role.
same role.
Sorry?
I'm just saying that I'm sure that a prime minister can fulfill the same role as a queen or a king. It's
No, no, because it still has a certain um, way of radiance that you have a king or a queen going somewhere, and anyhow uh, the king and queen can spend some time with a trade delegation. A prime minister won't be able to do that, and prime ministers are changing, so it is this whole uh, well uh,
Some sort of
promotional
ability.
thing that plays a role. But the figures are known, Romana, because there are polls made about the royal family, and they are every now and then published. So it has gone up and down, of course, the popularity of the Dutch royal family. When the king was criticized in public for having a villa in Mozambique that was built probably with not well, labor that wasn't all that proper. That is years ago, but he was severely criticized and popularity dropped. So the royal family has to be very careful in what they
they were
do.
also severely criticized during the Corona crisis because they went on
Yeah,
vacation, but
yeah,
they told the
yeah.
entire country to stay at home.
Yes, yes, correct. So things like that they shouldn't do. So they have to be very careful in that they are being watched, and
And
so
sculpting their image.
yes, it's all about image, but
Yeah.
Uh, so, and Queen Beatrix was very well aware of that, and was doing a good job with this. Um, Prior to that, we had Juliana with some issues with, I don't know if you know the name Greet Hofmans, but she was uh, interfering in uh, the royal family, a friend of the queen, and health healing issues with one of her daughters that wasn't all that good, and it created tensions between Juliana and her husband Bernard. So there you had a crisis situation. So there have been several crisis situations in the royal family, but they will survive if they are able to avoid those crisis situations. And if they are getting too serious, those crisis situations, then yes, then they may lose support. Well, so be it.
Um, uh, Thinking in terms of democratic values, uh, I mean, there's an intrinsic tension, I think, between a monarchy and the ideas of democracy. I mean, why should a single family dynasty keep being the head of a country? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
what,
agree.
what is the basics of it democratically? There is no.
It's
But
historical, but if you
yeah,
look
I
at
know.
It's
I'm not
medieval.
talking about. I'm not talking about the Netherlands or any specific country. Take North Korea. It is an undeclared monarchy.
Yeah.
Uh, this is terrible. I mean, you know, it has
Yes,
that.
but in the Netherlands, look at history again. It was Thorbecke 1848 with the Dutch Constitution. So the king had to uh, lost a good deal of his political powers. That continued with later monarchs until the current one, and with the current king, he has no political powers. It is all symbolic, and the decisions are made by the cabinet, and he plays a role in public events. He plays a role in the promotion of the Netherlands, and that's all fine. But there's no political power with the king.
Mhm, mhm.
Zero.
In the Ottoman, when we look at the Ottoman history, in 1876 there was a constitution and there was a parliament, the first parliament, 1876. Yes, and the parliament then was abolished by Abdulhamid II for 33
Yes.
years. 1908, the Young Turk Revolution
Yeah.
brought the parliament back. Uh, and one of the sultans, Mahmud II, westernized the Ottoman territory considerably, etc. A lot of it's very interesting. One of the interesting things is I think Abdulaziz, one of the last caliphs, um, his wife and his daughters did not cover their hair. They did not cover their faces. And he made beautiful paintings with nude women in the paintings. That was caliph of the Ottoman. So very interesting. History is so rich, you know.
Yes, it is.
It's and unfortunately, I don't know the Netherlands, but I tend to think that in history books, as in all books in schools are usually boring. Whereas history is so rich and interesting, colorful. How can history books be so boring when history is?
That's a
Well,
good
no,
question.
we recently had on Dutch TV a series about the Dutch royal family from William the First until today, and it's interesting to see how it developed and how they played a role in history. Not always such a nice role, by the way. Um, the death of van Oldenbarneveld was uh, from the princely family then at that time. Um, uh, uh, the Witt family, the Witt brothers, the same thing. So we've had our political murders in which the family didn't play such a good role. But on the other hand, in other areas they did. So it's with ups and downs. But this whole series was showing the both sides of the family. So the things that they have done positively, but also the things that were not done so well. You should be presenting history in an honest way and show the good and the negative sides of this particular family. So what? It should be known.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, children's literature is it's a vital area
Yes,
promoting peace. And I don't know if UNICEF, in coordination with UNESCO, has a program like this or an idea. Maybe we in our circles, organizations could promote this idea. Each country in the elementary school, uh, in a in an appropriate way, should include a few nice stories from neighboring countries. So in each country, the children should have an idea about the children world in the neighboring countries. That might, you know,
yes, yes,
um,
I agree.
to my knowledge, there is no such thing. And we don't know, does UNICEF know what kind of school books there are in elementary schools in the world, for example, especially. I mean, how are children formatted?
Yeah.
We need to look at those books, and if there's hate speech there, or racism, whatever, we should draw attention to that and force the governments to change that. What do you think?
That's not so easy. Of
It's a
course,
good
you should
idea,
you should
but
But
yeah.
at least it's not easy, but it's yeah. I do not know in Turkey what the school books are now in the elementary school level. Um, I should go and check. But how about this, um, you know, children's schooling and school books and world peace? These bringing this together.
I think you have a point though, because you need to start young for them not to be already indoctrinated by very negative ideas,
Mm.
or if you take a look at Israel and Palestine, for example, the way that they are brought up, the way that generation over generation there is still
yeah.
hate for things that happened years ago. Of course, it's still happening now, but still, for example, when the times are a little bit more quiet, why is there still so much hate? Because they're getting it from their parents and their parents giving it along and along and along. So I agree with what you're saying. You need to start young and make sure that we mold their minds in a positive way rather than a negative way. But it's just very hard to realize this idea.
True, but
Well, and there's government policy involved. I was involved with a German professor, Wolfram Reis, who 2 weeks ago retired from his position as a university professor at Vienna University. But he made a study on school books and how religion was presented in Egyptian school books, Palestinian, and from a number of other countries. Very interesting work. But you see, of course, heavy government influence because
Yeah.
they know the influence that these school books have, and these ministries of education are deeply involved.
true, true. So, uh, for example, yeah, Pan International, one of the committees, there are now five committees: Writers for Prison Committee, Writers for Peace Committee, Women Writers Committee, and Translation and Linguistic Rights Committee. Now there's a fifth committee, which is a Young Writers Committee, and a sixth one should be Children's Literature Committee, and cooperating with UNICEF, and I think at least this is an idea that can be shed light on, that can be promoted, and yeah, um,
Well, interesting was what the German school in Cairo does. My children were at the German school in Cairo, and in the last two classes, they had cooperative religion classes in which both Islam and Christianity were taught to Muslim and Christian kids at one and the same time. Very interesting. Because
good.
then you can say, look at this. We have certain stories about Abraham in the Bible, in the Quran. What are the similarities? What are the differences? Talk about it together. Of course, the teachers must be well trained. So this is not something that any teacher can do, but they have set up a very nice program that definitely our children have benefited from a great deal.
Hmm, true. And by the way, Romana, you mentioned your parents. My uncle, Safet Günerse, who worked in Germany as a doctor for 20 years, he considers himself a Muslim, a liberal Muslim, secular. Um, and he's married to a Catholic lady, and they they'll celebrate their 60th anniversary. Um, yeah, and many Christians, especially in the West, do not know that Jesus is highly respected in Islam.
Yeah, that's right.
And there are many Turks, or I'm sure Arabs, whose names is Isa, Jesus. Um, and also Maryam is highly
Yeah, yeah.
respected. And uh, one of the dogmas, of course, that Christians and Muslims, by definition, cannot agree on is, you know, that, but some of our listeners may not. Um, uh, According to the Islamic tradition, God did not let Jesus die on the cross, and that's one of the things that different traditions cannot agree on. Um, and one of my questions to my Christian friends is, I prefer not to discuss these things. Actually, I have a pragmatic approach, as you know. We are on the same planet now. What can we do together? You know, whether there is an
Looking for
afterlife.
similarities rather than looking
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
differences. Yeah.
Is there an afterlife? We'll find out when we die. No problem. No need to discuss. I mean, I'm a naturalist, so I think death is death, etc. But it's not an easy thing to accept. Anyway, but I mean, if Jesus is God or Son of God and God personified, then he did not sacrifice himself. But because he is God, what does sacrifice mean? I mean, he was God anyway. Uh, if he was human, as Muslims think, then his sacrifice was a sacrifice, and although then he's suffering, etc., etc. It makes sense. But how can Christians combine the idea of Jesus being a God himself, also some sort of sacrifice? There's no sacrifice if Jesus was God.
I think Case, you can answer this the best
Yeah.
way because honestly I struggle with that as well.
Well, you have to look at Christian history, so how things have been growing. So that
Again, history is
explains a
very
whole lot.
important.
Yes, and that is something that most Christians don't know. But you have to look at the Roman period when the Romans came to Egypt, collaborated with Herod, the role of Herod, the Hasmoneans, the messianic movements that you had in the first century. And out of this, there was one of those messianic leaders was Jesus and had a group of followers. Um, but it's then later theology um, after his death that followers were thinking, but he is living in us, he is living, he is still alive. Well, yes, you can accept that if you say, well, my father is still alive because I'm still thinking of him, right? So in that sense, you're still with him, but uh, theology made that tried to explain this in the thinking of that period, Platonic thinking, and well, that's developed into the Christianity with the Church Council of Nicaea, as you know well, and that became the basis for most churches today. And today, with Christians, they don't know that history. They simply accept what they are taught today. And well, this was taught by them by in church, by their parents, by whoever, and that's how it is. Yes, but if you look in history, it's a bit more complicated than that.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, history of religions is a fascinating area, and I want to write a book on living mythologies. This is living. For example, to me, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, these are all mythologies. And
Yes.
people, just as Zeus was, today we call Zeus and Aphrodite, etc., mythology. They didn't call them mythology. It was a religion. And and Christ has
Well,
been.
it is what how do you describe method
Mythology.
mythology? Yes, so it is always some, well, not always, but very often some historical components that
Yes.
later were elaborated on and people added stuff to that, and it
Exactly.
became a mythology. But
Exactly. For example, in Islam, Muhammad had no miracles. That's very important in Islam. But unfortunately, after Muhammad, some people thought, some Muslims, well, in Christianity there are miracles. We have to add some miracles
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
to make it more, fantastic or whatever.
yeah, of course.
That's very interesting. Yes,
And
and
Christmas, and then celebrating the birth of Muhammad, that looks very similar. You say, well, okay,
uh,
there's
uh, yes, and uh, but once somebody, I have a friend in India. I had an interview with him. He believes in like 33,000 gods and goddesses, and he says
does
that
he know all of them?
no, but gods know. But and he added that Jesus, Muhammad, Allah, they were also part of his uh, sphere of divinities. You know, to me that
Oh,
was very interesting. But um, I met this doctor. He was a Muslim in when I worked in Saudi Arabia, Aramco, for 4 years after the military coup in Turkey in early 1980s. He believed that God had created nature as a perfect entity, he believed that and he said that. But he had 6 fingers on his left hand. And yet he believed that nature was perfect. And when I saw this, I said, well, people keep believing what they are used to believe
yes, yes,
unless
yes.
there is something drastic, happens. And for example, in England, um, there was in 1969, after the photos from the moon came, there was an association in England called the Earth is Flat Association, and they abolished themselves after the photos. Um, and it's so interesting. That's why I have no beliefs. I mean, I refrain from and I never start a sentence with "I believe." I
Oh
prefer.
no, certainly you have beliefs, Tarek. I'm sure you have beliefs.
I have assumptions. I, I have assumptions, values, preferences. Um, they are all subject to change, revision, open. Uh, my basic assumption is that nature is self-sufficient, interesting, fruitful, and there is science. We're learning about it.
Of course.
Um, but why should I? My grandfather was a theologian, a secular and democratic theologian, and I was lucky, and we had a free de debate when I was a child. Anyway, um, yeah, these are um, interesting. All these things are part of life. Yes.
Yes, but at
Um,
least with religion, you need to know the historical origins. And if you understand the historical origins, then you are less inclined to come with absolutist beliefs of this is true and that is wrong.
True,
This is,
true. Well, this second part of our of my interview with you, conversation. I talked more than I should have, maybe. Uh, but we have 3 minutes left. Any other what else would you like to say? Anything else you would like to add, dear Case, first?
yes, that I'm glad that Earthmates is joining the Anna Lindh Foundation, and that through this fantastic network that we have as the Anna Lindh Foundation, we can do many more things together,
Yeah, thank
inshallah.
you. Yeah, I hope so, inshallah. Thank you. Romana, dear, How about you? Would you like to add a few things?
No, I think I just agree with Case. So I'm very happy that we had this conversation as well. It was a very interesting discussion, I think, or interview. And I think together we stay strong. As long as the more people you have connected with each other, the more you can
Yeah.
actually reach, the more goals you can reach. So
Yeah.
yeah, it would be great for you to come and join us. Thank you.
And
And
uh,
also, we would love to help you out, of course, in your endeavors.
yes, yes,
Yes.
thank you.
And with a great network in the Anna Lindh Foundation that
Yeah.
is available.
Yes, I feel and have I feel think so. Feel and think so. Thank you both so much. And Romana, um, I know you're busy, even if for a few minutes, on the first Sunday and the third Sunday of each month at 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Central European Time. We meet on Zoom, and on the third Sunday, the topic will be translation.
Okay.
And you don't have to be, it's a cafe. That's Earthmates Cafe. So no duties, no responsibilities, nothing, just
Just chatting.
it is a synergy platform.
Okay.
Yes.
Especially if you're tired, come and feel relaxed.
Refreshed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah.
Okay.
You said the first and the third
Yeah,
Yes.
Sunday of each month.
Sunday, yeah, of the month. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you so
take care.
much.
I'm happy
Okay.
to be with you both. Thank you so much, dear
Thank
Kay
you very much, Tarek, for
and Romana.
this meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.